Hello, thanks everyone for joining today's webinar with DTEN on Zoom. We're covering new solutions to re-enter the office. I'm Doug Remington, I'm General Manager for the EMEA region. I'm joined today by Michael Willett. Michael is the Zoom Rooms Manager for the international region. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Doug. Thank you very much for having me on the webinar. Looking forward to the discussion and the great demos ahead of us.
Excellent, good to see you. We also have Andrew Bissett from DTEN. Andrew is the country manager for UK, Ireland and Southern Africa, who's going to be doing some wonderful demos for us later. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Doug, and thank you for having me. It's always good to join these webinars, and especially when we've got some exciting news as well.
Yes, indeed. So I'll start off with some housekeeping. So the webinar should run for about 30 minutes. We've got extra time at the end for discussion and questions. The Q&A is open throughout the session. So we have people in the background working hard to answer all your questions. And we'll also have time at the end. So please, as they come to mind, fire them over into the Q&A and we'll tackle those for you as best we can. Please also remember to stick around to the end of the webinar. We will be recording it, of course, but at the end we'll have a QR code you can scan, which will take you to a landing page and offer you a free one-to-one consultation with one of the DTEN specialists. We can also do those in local language, in English, French, German, Dutch, or Spanish. So we'll have that at the end for you. So, first of all, we just wanted to quickly review what we're seeing and hearing around the current state of work and where we're headed. 2020 was definitely focused on empowering work from home. We focused on the ideal home setup, making the most of videos, and really managing that kind of work-life balance at home, which is probably the most challenging part of all. But 2021 is really going to be about how we go back to the office. Some people for sure will continue to work remotely or at home full-time. Some will return to the office full-time, and a lot of people are going to end up going maybe 1, 2, 3 days a week and have this is what we really call the hybrid work environment. So today we're really going to look at the question of, are we ready to re-enter the office for these new ways of working? And Michael, maybe you've got a couple of points that you see on the Zoom side there.
Yeah, I think this has been really interesting, Doug, actually, and certainly one to have a watching brief on. The great thing with my role is sitting across our international markets. We get a real flavour for anything from sort of UK out to New Zealand and anything in between, really, as to how we see people sort of returning. And I think what we've seen in that time is entire markets sort of having to digitize. So I think anything from sort of education to healthcare, retail, and really what we're seeing from that is obviously having the tool sets to manage that sort of agility, if you will. And again, I think because it's different times and different, obviously, timescales around the lockdown, what we're seeing obviously with the tools that hopefully we're going to share with you today is that there's a lot of agility around both that sort of homework and office environment and really looking at that hybrid workplace. So yeah, really interesting. And yeah, I think we can certainly cover some good messaging with that.
Yeah, the agility piece is key with the amount of change that's happening in the marketplace for sure. So this slide you can see now is, I like this one. It gives you a feel for some of the kind of designs that we are seeing a lot. These stats up here are from a recent study by Forbes, and they were really asking what it would take for people to feel comfortable about going back to the office and what was important to them. And there's some key themes that emerge, and one of the key ones, as you would expect, is safety. Returning to the office safely for both employees and anyone who's visiting. And so implementing safety protocols, managing traffic, cleaning and hygiene regimes, these are going to be really, really important. One is, of course, to create a professional work environment. Not everybody has the perfect work from home setup, and certainly not every day of the week. So that's really key. But probably the most convincing one is just that, desire to get back, connecting in person with colleagues, collaborating, getting creative, getting back, feeling the company culture, and meeting people and colleagues in person. So, Michael, I know you're having a lot of conversations around these kind of designs and how that works. Can you add any more to that?
Yeah, I think we're certainly seeing a lot of the kind of industry analysts and sort of corporate real estate advisors really sort of sharing their thoughts on the market, and also, again, sitting across a lot of different organizations, we get to see really sort of their views and thoughts around how we go back. I wouldn't say there's a one size fits all, but I think what we are seeing is a combination of people now looking to redesign that traditional meeting room. I think what we certainly see is that sort of standard office setup as was probably isn't conducive to a great working environment as we go back. So how do people evolve and make sure that that's a good working environment? So I think, as you say, highlighted with the picture there, I think we're seeing a combination of open office space. So as I say, taking away some of those traditional meeting rooms and putting it more into an open plan collaborative workspace, but also then with the kind of pod environment, giving people the ability to have a personal private discussion if they require, and rather than an individual walking into a meeting room and taking a large resource of a 5, 10, 15 person meeting room, the ability then, as I say, to do that in a more sort of corporate real estate friendly manner, if you will, and better utilization of that real estate. And this has been anything from organizations going back to the standard office, or even hotel chains now reinventing how they do business in a sort of post-pandemic world. So yeah, been really interesting to monitor and watch, and I think we're going to see that evolve as we move forward.
Thanks very much for those insights. We wanted to quickly touch on actually the relationship between DTEN and Zoom. We really do have a deep strategic partnership that's been running for a number of years now. We're both companies are really known for innovation in this space, and the cutting edge features in our software and the hardware really kind of come together to provide this optimal experience, video, conferencing, collaboration. And then on the DTEN side, everything we do is purpose built for Zoom and Zoom rooms and the experience. And again, like I said, to optimize quality and experience. We tend to focus on what we call the 3 easies. So easy to set up and install, easy to use, and easy to manage. And all these things really align with this agility piece, which is so important right now, and the concept of frictionless meetings that Zoom have done such a great job of applying to their space with the platform.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, from the Zoom point of view, so we see this strong alignment at the R&D level, really sort of focused on this deep sort of co-engineering and development. I think if you put a banner around it, around sort of the headline, it's really to provide that happy, frictionless experience that we see and are really keen to sort of provide our end users with. And the DTEN D7 was a great example of this. I think certainly when we first came out to market with the products was the ability to, how do we simplify that meeting room experience? Traditionally, we saw sort of video device, telephone, whiteboard, screen within a meeting room, lots of cables. And the idea being, how do we start to obviously clean that up and simplify that experience, just to make it a frictionless experience? And I think the D10, obviously all-in-one device, is a great way to sort of show that you can just have a collaborative experience on the whiteboard, but you could then escalate to telephony or video as and when required. So that was really exciting. And I think it's then, how do we continue that evolution moving forwards? So the open API capability with our kiosk mode, again, as we start to go through and see that in the demo a little bit later, is really then how we're starting to open up that API to D10 and really leverage that deeper relationship. And a great example of that for the home users was when we launched Zoom for Home. And we did that around the D10 Me product. So that was the 27-inch version of the D7, where you could actually then have this all-in-one solution for that professional home working experience. So lots of great innovation, and certainly know the teams are working some exciting things as we now move forward, as I say, post-pandemic.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, the kind of co-engineering, co-development is key for this innovation and the speed of innovation, and it really, really helps users in the end with the simplicity and focusing on doing what you want to do best. So we're going to get stuck right into the solutions we talked about. So today we really wanted to give you some real solutions that are going to help this re-entering of the office. This is obviously coming up very quickly now. Great news is we have a way out and people coming back to the office. So the following things we're going to cover the kiosk mode from Zoom with the Zoom virtual assistant, and Andrew's going to do as a demo for that as well. We're going to cover Zoom's best kept secret, digital signage. We have the in-office personal and shared spaces, kind of what we just touched on a moment ago with those office designs. And we have the Zoom controller app, which is a very exciting addition that's just been launched. Also the guest join for Teams integration, which is something that's been talked about a lot and is released and getting some great feedback. And finally, the Alexa voice commands, which is Michael's going to show us as well. So on that, I'm going to move straight on to virtual assistants. So Zoom have just released kiosk mode, now available with the Zoom Rooms license. It's a really effective solution to enable a safe entry to a building. You can see on the deck the video there on how that works really well with the DTEN EMEA, the 27-inch screen, but also the 55-inch DTEN units. And on the top right, you can see the 27-inch EMEA sitting on the counter as you enter. So it works really, really well. And it, again, aligns perfectly for this safe return to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add to that, Doug, I mean, I think what we've seen when everybody's starting to look at returning back to the office, that employee well-being and safety was the #1 priority we were hearing from lots of organizations. Nobody wanted to return back unless they could look after employees in doing so. So they've really been looking to obviously Zoom and DTEN around how we can help them on that journey. This is a great example of that. So rather having somebody sort of on frontline reception, potentially being exposed to lots of people coming through the door, was really that we could then video enable that environment. So this is a great example of removing friction from a video experience. Traditionally, if you'd have done this, it obviously required a number of moving parts to make this possible. And really follows that when we then jump into the demo, we'll start to see really, again, as you were mentioning earlier, how we follow those simple principles. So very easy to set up. From a corporate point of view, then very easy to personalize. So we see organizations then wanting to put their brand on this capability as well. And then really simple from a workflow perspective. So if you need people in the background being able to answer the call, how do you do that simplistically? And if you've got users who aren't available, then how do you manage that workflow behind the scenes? So a really nice way, simplistically, as I say, to leverage technology on that safe return. So I think we're going to pass over to Andrew now for a demo of the setup.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Michael. And actually starting off with the theme of simplicity and ease of setting up, instead of going straight into a demo, what I'd rather do is just quickly share my screen just to show how easy it is to set up. So what I've done is I've opened my web browser. I've gone into our Zoom admin portal, gone down to Zoom Rooms, and under Zoom Rooms, just let it refresh quickly. Under Zoom Rooms, this is where you can then add in additional Zoom rooms. So in the top right-hand corner, you can add room. And under add room, you then automatically get a drop-down of the different room types that you can add. So this is where you would add a traditional Zoom room, which would require a license. You also now can add a kiosk, which I'll go and I'll dig deeper in. And for kiosk, we obviously need a room license. You can also create a personal Zoom room, a scheduling display, or digital signage. So I'm just going to jump back to the rooms, and over here I've got my kiosk. So if I go into edit that, literally you can ignore the first few tabs. It is great. Zoom have made this super easy by adding in a kiosk tab. Click on kiosk, and over here I can then add in a logo. So I've already uploaded the DTEN logo. You can customize the welcome greeting. So our welcome greeting is just quite simply, welcome to DTEN. A quick reiteration of the fact that we are committed to a safe environment, and we give instructions of tap the button below. And below this is actually your call button. I've named it Meet Receptionist, and you can even change the background. And you can then add the people that it would call. In this instance, Pavi is set up as the person that our reception will call. You can actually save up to 4 people. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop sharing, and I'm then going to share a side-facing camera. Switching over to my side-facing camera, this is my little DTEN EMEA, my personal endpoint. It can be used for Zoom for Home, but I've actually signed into it as a virtual receptionist in kiosk mode. I'm using it as a virtual receptionist, but it's amazing the application that we've already seen. Bearing in mind this is only just launched, but we've got a lot of customers that are using this as an IT help desk. The hotels in particular, as a virtual concierge service. Because you can rename what it is called and what the instructions are, you can customize it for whatever works best for you. Quite simply, I've got the logo that I showed you me setting it up, the personal greeting. And if I click on receptionist, now I'll click on meet receptionist, and that literally connects video. I'm conscious I've got a camera pointing at the board itself, so it'll take a couple of seconds for the camera just to adjust to the light. And that should be calling our receptionist. And hopefully she will answer pretty quickly. There we go.
Welcome to DTEN. How may I help you?
Hi there, good morning. I'm here to see Doug Remington.
Okay, so let me just check if he's available. Sorry, at the moment he's editing a webinar. Can you just wait in the reception? I'll connect you when he's available.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
No problem.
So I'll just leave that. So there you go. You get to see it in real life, exactly how it works. Now, I've got to be honest and say, admittedly, at the moment, you do still need to touch the device. I used a stylus. You can simply use your finger as well. The good thing about the DTEN EMEA is it's got a glass screen, so it is very easy to sanitize. And both DTEN and Zoom are working on ways of having contactless entry in future as well.
Thank you, Andrew. Get the screen share back up here. Okay, great. So thanks very much. Lots of stuff with kiosk mode and virtual assistant just out. So love to hear people's different applications for that as well. It would be really interesting to get any comments you have. So digital signage. This is a really core component to the Zoom Room stack. And we talk about it being the best kept secret. I always think it's amazing value because for literally one Zoom Room license, you get unlimited digital signage across the organization. So, and of course, it works perfectly across the DTEN devices. You can see some good examples up there. But I think on the topic of today of returning back to the office safely, especially, messaging is going to be really, really key. And this is a really agile, effective way that you can communicate as people move through the premises using your estate that you already have. And a lot of our devices are in meeting rooms. So if these meeting rooms are not in use, so pre and post meetings, you can put any kind of messaging, corporate messaging, safety messaging on those devices. So very, very powerful, very cost-effective way to leverage your digital estate.
Thanks, Doug. I mean, I think, again, just to add, it's as you say, Zoom's best kept secret. It's something that comes up a lot in our client briefings that traditionally people are unaware of that actually is offered from Zoom. As you say, you get unlimited signage with that one Zoom Room license. So where this first started to sort of be deployed was initially we had the requirement from customers to say, how do we better utilize the screen real estate we've got for video rooms? And that's really when we were then starting to leverage our Zoom portal, so the same portal that manages the meetings platform, telephony, and the video units themselves. We could then also push the capability to have signage through that. So first started essentially leveraging the video codec as that digital media player to be able to do that. So no additional hardware. You can do that through, obviously, through DTEN and Zoom. Really where we've then seen this start to move on, particularly around safe return to the office. As we start to see that return back, we see organizations looking at how they can message to their employees to do that. And it's not then just with corporate IT, we're seeing facilities management, HR, corporate real estate, all be involved in how do we get employees safely back into the office, or certainly how do we plan for that. And then signage is this great tool set to be able to leverage that messaging. So it's really pushing out sort of safe social distance messaging. If you've got new employees that might have onboarded during the pandemic, how do you guide them safely back into the office? But also then with the office changing so much since we've last been in, how do you start to guide the people who knew previously? Again, what some of that key messaging may be. So really powerful. Also powerful in that retail environment as well. So if you've got customer facing environments that you want to push core content out, you can do so. So it's not just around the internal sort of intranet messaging, it's also around corporate facing areas as well. So it's been really powerful. If you don't have a video system in those corporate facing areas, then we can leverage a mini PC stick And that essentially is the media player for the screen. So that might be in canteen areas where you want to push a menu of the day, or as I say, in a customer facing, maybe a screen behind a reception area. So it's been really powerful for us, and certainly one that's coming up in lots of discussions. And for people who have already deployed signage, we can leverage things like IPTV streams into the Zoom portal, again, to push that. And from an administration point of view, it can be managed globally, or you can push administration down to the local users. So it might be a country site, local language, that you've got people managing that content. So yeah, really powerful. If anybody needs further information, obviously, please reach out to DTEN Zoom.
Thanks, Michael. I mean, I think both kiosk mode and signage are great examples of applications that before were both expensive, but also complicated to manage, right, and involve quite a lot of third-party applications and software, and it's just been made easy and much more cost-effective to deliver. So, okay, so next we're going to talk about the personal meeting spaces. Again, we showed you the kind of office plan that we looked at. If you look at the video there, one of the key focus areas of obviously the open plan work areas, but also an area where an individual can go and have a private meeting and work effectively, sometimes referred to as phone booths, or I prefer to call them a collaboration booth now. You can see in that example, the DTEN EMEA, the 27-inch is a great solution for that. It's a very cost-effective all-in-one solution. That if you're just moving around with your laptop, they either work perfectly as a standalone, but even better when you have them next to your laptop or your MacBook. And instead of being stuck on a small single screen that you have on your laptop and be restricted to that, you have the nice 27-inch screen to give you that scope, but also the added functionality of annotation and whiteboarding. With the new features from Zoom, sharing that whiteboarding has become much, much easier by just shooting that out after the meeting over email, but also over chat. So I think this is a really, really big application for the new offices, and we're seeing a lot of deployments looking at this kind of solution.
Yeah, and I think as we mentioned at the top of the call, Doug, I think we see a lot of organizations opening up to have more open plan spaces, but this is where I see the personal meeting spaces being key. It's that safe area that you can go and have that private chat. And as you highlight, the screen site, this real estate of the 27-inch over and above just being on a smaller sort of 13-inch Mac or PC really makes it a usable application around that. But this is also a great example of how we're then working with the wider Zoom platform. So we have now what are classed as Zoom apps or ZAPs, and we have over 1,000 sort of those now that we can actually leverage the platform with. So we really look at these pods now as being what we class as kind of ideation areas as well, where we can actually collaborate with our colleagues. And we have what we class as Zoom persistent whiteboard. So you can have that whiteboard discussion. They're perfect for that ideation environment. But then also, how do you then start to save that back to chat, further editing and ongoing collaboration? And this is where we're then working with those ZAP providers, because quite often people will have collaboration tools that they use internally, and they want to leverage those tool sets when working with Zoom and DTEN. So this is really the window then into that sort of ideation environment and collaboration as we look at next gen, sort of infinite canvas, all of those types of areas. So exciting innovation coming, and this is really just the sort of start of that. But the personal meeting space is certainly going to be something key moving forwards. Again, just reiterating, just making sure we've got the right sanitation in place, as Andrew mentions, around the glass screens, obviously in this environment.
Yeah, I think some of these advances, I think even just little pieces like you mentioned, the new version with Zoom Rooms of after you've had your meeting and you want to send out that whiteboarding images, now what it'll automatically do is detect the people who've been in the meeting. So instead of scrolling through a long address book or searching, it automatically can present you who's been in the meeting, so you can very quickly get content out very easy. And all these new applications coming for collaboration are, very exciting to DTEN, because collaboration is at the heart of all of our devices. So great stuff. I'm going to go on to our next one. This is one of my favorites from the new Zoom releases. So I've got my Zoom Room controller app downloaded on my iPhone, and I love to control my D7 as I walk around my small office and use it to control the device. But this is a great addition. Can you tell us a little bit more, Michael?
Yeah, so this has been one of the big wins, I think, for us out of the pandemic around what we saw within the R&D group, there's a number of things sitting there on the kind of innovation ideas that really got driven forward, particularly within the pandemic, as customers were coming to us, sharing their challenges and really asking how we could help with them. So this is really around leveraging innovation to drive sort of a better experience in that post-pandemic world. So this is really people, I think, all about touch going into the pandemic. Coming out the other side is how do they start to then sort of work around feeling comfortable around the technology. So traditionally, for those of you unaware, we'd have a Zoom room controller within the room, and this would be a sort of shared device that people would drive the meeting experience. Some of the feedback from customers is, how can we do that in a more personalized manner? So really what we've been enabling is that Zoom room controller to be downloaded and actually installed on your mobile device. So it's the same Zoom Rooms controller as available on Android or iOS. And this is the ability then to drive that full Zoom meeting experience through the mobile device. So people are feeling comfortable with their mobile. We all carry one typically, and we feel comfortable driving that. And really what it's meant also from that meeting room experience is that you've got different people within the room who can actually sort of share content and drive that experience. So it's been really powerful. Some of the questions we then get asked is that, okay, I now have the ability, for example, to share content. So how do we start to do that? So if you just skip to the next slide, Doug, I think we start to see sort of what that looks like on the actual device itself. So here we can see probably the first important thing is that same familiar interface. If you've used the Zoom meetings platform or a room device previously, use exactly that same sort of interface. So if you need to mute participants, stop or start video, invite participants to the call, all of that same rich functionality that you're used to. You can even start to do things like camera control, and we can start to sort of show how that happens. The way we do this is that we can actually pair with the meeting room device. So this is one of the big sort of things behind the system. So we actually have ultrasonics built within the platform. So as soon as I'm in a meeting room, the PIN network. So that's a really important thing. All you actually need is two key points, is one, the Zoom room controller, and two, connectivity. That might be over 4G, or it also might be on the network itself. And then from that, as I say, we can actually pair in the ultrasonics from a security point of view are just within the room only. And you can actually vary the ultrasonic signal. But again, if you've got people outside of the room, you don't have to worry about security because they can't share through the sort of glass or wall. So really important from a security point of view, but again, really enabling that rich user experience from the room device. So I think what we're going to do now is pass over to Andrew and actually see that in practice.
Absolutely, and thanks very much, Michael. It's always way better if I just show exactly how it works. So again, I'm going to flick over to my side-facing camera. I've got my mobile phone with me, and what I'll do is I'll just zoom in on that ever so slightly, and it will always take a couple of seconds to adjust. Let me just open up my mobile phone. I've installed that controller app that, as Michael referred to, the controller app has been around for a while, but up until now, it had to be used on a tablet. It's now supported on a mobile phone. I open the app, and up on the screen here, I automatically see any rooms that are associated with my license. But the most important one is at the bottom here, it says control nearby rooms. And when I click on that, it will then, through ultrasonic, detect what rooms, and you will have seen in the bottom right-hand corner there, and I'll just zoom back out again. In the bottom right-hand corner there, you can see that my DTEN board is actually showing that it is paired. Now with my mobile phone, what I can then do is I can simply start a meeting on the fly. It joins straight into a meeting. While I'm in that meeting, I can then click on camera controls. I can zoom in, zoom out on my camera. I can then flick it back to auto framing. Personally, I prefer the auto framing. Say done. And again, back to that interface that you would typically see on a tablet in the room itself. You can start sharing content. You can mute and unmute the microphone. And you can also just quite simply end the meeting as well. End the meeting for all, and I end the meeting. So the great thing about this is now I have all of the functionality that you would typically get on a tablet, but I have the safety aspect of not having to touch a shared surface. I can do it all from my mobile device. There's another great feature that Zoom have recently introduced, and while I'm busy sharing my board, I think I'd like to just show you that. The first bit is, as you know, DTEN devices are dedicated Zoom room devices. So the good thing about that is you walk into a Zoom room that has a DTEN installed. You can use it for joining a pre-scheduled meeting that's up on the board. You can start a meeting on the fly. Because it's got direct share, you can just use it as a screen to share content. It's got whiteboarding built in. But what happens if somebody then wants you to join a Teams meeting, for example? Up until recently, you'd need a gateway service to do that. But Zoom and Microsoft have worked together to introduce guest joining of Teams from your Zoom Room endpoint. So what I'll do is I'm just going to zoom in ever so slightly, just so you can see. There's my calendar. This actually shows you my invite for this webinar that we were in. And Charlie scheduled a Microsoft Teams meeting. He sent me an invite. Now that invite's gone straight into my calendar. Another scenario you might be in is if you receive an invitation to a Teams meeting and you want to join it from the room, what you do is you simply invite the room to that meeting. Whether you use Outlook or Google Calendar or whatever calendar application you have, every Zoom room has its own email address and therefore its own calendar resource. So therefore, you can just simply add the room to join your meeting as a participant, and it goes straight into the calendar. Just going back down to that Teams meeting, you can see I've got the option to join. I'm going to click join, and then I'm going to zoom out ever so slightly. So you'll see that has literally just launched straight into a Teams meeting. I've gone into Charlie's Teams meeting, and hopefully Charlie will let me in pretty quickly. Just while I'm waiting for Charlie to let me in, there we go. Hello, Charlie. Okay, actually, it just popped up to tell me that my microphone is muted, but that also draws attention to some of the in-meeting features you've got. I've got my self view in the bottom right-hand corner there. If I touch the screen or if I use the controller, I can turn my video on and off. I can mute and unmute. If any chats are being done, I will be able to see the chats themselves. And anybody sharing content, I can obviously see the content that is being shared. But for me, the most powerful bit about this is you still get the simplicity and user-friendliness of your Zoom Room interface. You get all of the benefits that come with Zoom Rooms. Now you also have very seamlessly get the ability to join a Teams meeting as and when you need to. Literally uses the built-in camera, the built-in microphones, and I'm just joining a Teams meeting room as a guest. Just one little thing to highlight, you do need to be on the latest Zoom Room app version, which is 5.5. On the DTEN device, it has to be on the latest DTEN sort of firmware, which is 1.8. But that can easily be updated through the Zoom admin portal. Cheers, Charlie. Thanks very much. And obviously, as I end that meeting, it then takes me straight back to my standard greeting that you would get, the Zoom Room for Touch, when somebody else walks into the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I mean, I think that the key element of that and what we're seeing here is that we'd love everybody to be on DTEN and Zoom. I think what we realize is obviously as we start to sort of really sort of collaborate, not just internally, but also as we start to look sort of externally with sort of business partners, suppliers, is the need then to join other platforms. And that's what we're trying to do in a very simplistic manner. Traditionally, to do that, you might require sort of CVI service or Cisco video interop services between Cisco and Microsoft in particular. And really what we're trying to do again is, from the Zoom point of view, that happy frictionless experience, really trying to remove that in the back end. So if those of you familiar with our CRC or our conference room connector, this was the ability previously to enable SIP or H.323, so traditionally sort of standards-based endpoints from Cisco, then to join into a Zoom call. So that's been really popular and certainly well used. The next stage on from that was then how do we align into the Microsoft world? And this is where direct guest join, as we call it from the Zoom side, has become really important to try and do that very seamlessly. The idea right now is we do that on Windows and Mac OS, so that's available in full feature preview today. And then we're just in the launch phase of our Android devices. So that's things like the DTEN On or the DTEN Me. So again, really important, again, really trying to simplify that from the user experience. And again, really trying to drive that wider adoption in that sort of happy and frictionless experience. So back to you for any further comments.
No, I think there's been a few questions on that, and I think it's something that's discussed a lot. So I think it's a great, the people who've seen that are using it, are really enjoying it. So I think you've answered a few of the questions in the chat by going through, those pieces there. Andrew, thanks very much for the demos. Good stuff. So I'm going to quickly move on. Michael, do you want to tell us a little bit around the Alexa piece?
Yeah, so a bit like the mobile sort of hands-free experience, really what we've been trying to do is actually then look at ways that we can take this forward. And I think certainly I see with my children at home, lots of innovation coming into the Wallet household now around how they're leveraging technology in a way that I'd never leveraged technology as a child. And I think really what we have to be aware of is when we're going into the office and leveraging the sort of room environments or even at home is how do we leverage this new innovation coming in and to really get a more seamless approach to video. And again, voice was one of those things sitting on the R&D list. Again, really sort of jumped up priority-wise as we sort of stepped through the pandemic and really then looking at sort of post-pandemic. So this is the ability to actually then leverage, in this case, Alexa skills. So we've been working very closely with Zoom R&D and Amazon R&D, then to leverage the voice innovation that they have, rather than having to go and recreate a lot of this ourselves. The view is, can we work with leading industry innovators in this space and align it with the Zoom platform? So this sort of real coexistence. So what you'll see here is that we can start and join and leverage Zoom controls with voice capabilities. So Alexa, start my meeting. And really, this has been really important, as I say, particularly as we want to go sort of more of the hands-free and be aware of, again, back to that employee well-being and safety, making sure people feel comfortable coming back and using the technology. The other key thing around this is that we can enable advanced voice assistant features and customize private skills through your AWS portal. So there's ways that you can really make this specific to your use case or specific to your organization. So it's something we're super excited about. I think this, with the combination of driving through the mobile controller, give us some really good tool sets now as we start to drive that wider adoption within the room or physical workspace.
I think this is a great, addition to the safety piece and the kind of touchless piece. I think we've got the Zoom controller app from the mobile. And there's, again, nothing takes place of kind of safety regimes when you're going back to the office of cleaning. We can use stylus. All these things, and also just to note, the DTEN screens are all capacitive touch, so very easy to wipe down with antibacterial wipes. So again, all these things can be part of a return to the office plan to keep people safe in this new environment. So a lot of things there. There's a quick summary of all the things we covered today. I think there was some really great pieces there. So 6 different elements. I'm just going to put this screen up now, and before we go into a few questions for the last few minutes, I just wanted to highlight again the QR code there. If you scan it, that will take you to a landing page. You can book up a one-to-one session in English, French, German, Dutch, or Spanish. We can take you through from the kind of demo studios and discuss more about specific requirements. We know there are lots and lots of different requirements and different approaches out there. And if you need to do a try and buy program, we also have that we support as well through DTEN. So please scan that. We have had a few questions coming through. I think one of the first ones I've seen, there's a lot of kind of questions around functionality and features. And I think obviously one of the key things we always remember people to highlight are the versions of you can manage all this centrally from the ZDM Zoom device management portal, and the latest versions of the Zoom Room version, and also the latest firmware versions on the DTEN devices to leverage all the latest functionality. But there's a few questions around cameras on different devices. The DTEN approach is to just put in the best components, so put in great cameras, great mics, audio quality, video, etc. And then as these progress with our firmware updates, we align to the Zoom software. So a lot of the features are there, they get added. So a kind of progression on our D7 units was on the camera, from having a fixed camera to a PTZ enabled camera to auto framing. That's also rolling out on some of the newer devices like the EMEA, going through those stages as well. So those kind of additions in functionality are key. Is there anything else you wanted to say on that side, Michael, from a Zoom perspective?
Well, I think really added today from today's topic, like we're sharing some of the innovation, and I think the innovation is certainly driven by our customer and partners around that. So I think I'm really keen to understand if there's other things you're seeing in the marketplace as customers that we haven't shown today that obviously are that next stage of innovation. But hopefully I'd like to see that you're seeing that we're trying to do our best to make that happy and frictionless experience for the end users. But again, that's a constant process moving forward. So we'd love to hear from you in the Q&A if there's other ideas or thoughts you've got.
Okay, great, thanks. There's a few questions about kind of key next features to look out for in terms of roadmap. Can you share any more there? I know we talked a little bit about the collaboration side, which is going to be key, because I know there's a few things on the way there.
Yeah, I think you're going to see much more around, really around the Zoom platform now. I mean, we've got a lot of the core functionalities for obviously aligning the core UC stack. So meetings, obviously telephony, chat, and obviously the video element with rooms and physical spaces. I think what you're now going to see on is that more of that platform play as you see integrations with our ZAP providers. So how do those providers then essentially add additional capabilities and functionality to that whole ecosystem? So a bit like you saw sort of Salesforce CRM, how do we then start to leverage obviously the capabilities around that Zoom install base now, but with things like we're talking around integration around ideation and infinite whiteboards and canvas, etc. But also then adding workflow to hotel change, for example, or looking at the hotel of the future. So I think yes, lots of great ideas and capabilities around that. And I think we're really going to see the sort of market drive those ideas and thoughts behind it. And obviously we'll do our best from an R&D point of view to make sure that's included within that Zoom ecosystem.
Yeah, I think, again, the same. We tend to align on the DTEN side, the kind of tech roadmap to get best use of those features. And that's why the co-engineering and co-development is so critical to move quickly. So you see a lot of those Zoom Room updates that we've talked about today then come through on the DTEN firmware updates onto the devices. So stay on top of managing those through the ZDM piece, then that works really, really nicely. And you can centrally manage those devices as well. I think there's a lot of pieces about, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just on that point, seeing some questions around ZDM and again, ZDM versus all. I think that the key point around ZDM, again, where that was driven from an innovation point of view. Traditionally, we saw customers having to manage both software stack and then obviously the hardware stack from that, and maybe even infrastructure on premise. The great thing of on the Zoom cloud is we have all of that capability built into the back end. So by being able to leverage our Zoom portal, and then with what we class as Zoom device management, so ZDM, is the ability then with appliance-based units is to be able to then push both software and hardware updates. So it means we can innovate at scale in the back end and push those innovations to our customers very quickly, but also ensuring then that if there's hardware updates that need to be aligned to that, we can push the hardware, obviously, for the DTEN devices through ZDM. So a really nice kind of one-stop shop there for our customers to do. Orbit does have some functionality, obviously, over and above that for DTEN customers to be able to enable that. But again, we're trying to bring as much of that as we can into the ZDM device to simplify that sort of single pane of glass.
The Zoom controller app, so there's a lot of interest there. Just to confirm, there's a couple of questions. And that, you know, as Andrew showed earlier, it can obviously see your devices that are registered within your account, but also using ultrasonic as well, so it can detect your device using that, so you can just connect to those devices which are within range. So as long as you've got that set up in your settings within your Zoom room, you can switch that off. But as long as you've got it on, you can then detect that device and just connect, which doesn't depend on the network that you're on. Okay, so I think we're pretty much up to our time. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to Michael and Andrew for joining and taking part as panelists, and the people sitting behind, Angela and Charlie. Pavi and Kevin. So thanks everyone for helping out. I want to thank everybody who's taken the time to join us today. We really hope that's been helpful. And we do plan to do these on a regular basis with DTEN and Zoom. There's so much happening in terms of the roadmap and what's coming through that we'll keep those coming. So we'll keep you posted on the next sessions. But thanks everyone for joining and have a great day.